80 years ago today, on April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler, the Austrian-born German politician who was closely involved in military operations throughout World War II, who was central to the perpetration of the Holocaust, the genocide of about 6 million Jews, and millions of other victims, had committed suicide by gunshot at the age of 56. His wife, Eva Braun, at the age of 33, committed suicide by cyanide poison. When it became evident that Germany would lose the Battle of Berlin, which resulted in the end of World War II in Europe, Hitler and Braun both committed suicide together in the Führer bunker in Berlin, Germany. By Hitler's earlier verbal and written orders, their remains were taken to the Reich Chancellery Garden that afternoon, where they were doused with gasoline and set ablaze after being carried upstairs and through the bunker's emergency exit. The following day, May 1st, German radio podcasts broadcast the news of Hitler's death. Hitler shot himself, most likely in the temple, according to eyewitnesses who saw his body right after he committed suicide. The adjutant for Hitler, Otto Gunschet, who handled both bodies, testified that Hitler's body smelled of gunpowder, but Braun smelled strongly of burnt almonds, a sign of cyanide poisoning. The only part of Hitler's body that has been positively identified is the dental remains discovered in the Chancellery Garden, which were compared to the dental records in May 1945. Now let me tell you what exactly happened that day. No conspiracies are allowed. For less than 2 days, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun shared the Führer bunker as husband and wife. Field Marshal Wilhelm Keitel stated that Berlin's defenders were either surrounded or fleeing by April 30th, 1945. Hitler bid his employees farewell at 2:30 in the morning before meeting with General Helmuth Weidling, who issued a warning that Berlin would fall within 24 hours. In the end, Hitler gave his approval to a breakout attempt. Around 2:30 p.m., Hitler and Braun left the bunker occupants after lunch and went into his study, where SS Adjutant Otto Gunschet was on watch. Heinz Linge, the valet, later discovered Hitler and Braun dead on the sofa after smelling gunpowder. Hitler had shot himself, and Braun had taken cyanide. During their deaths, between 3 and 4 p.m., Gunschet and others verified that no one had access to the room. Hitler ordered the bodies to be wrapped, taken to the garden, and burned with gasoline. Joseph Goebbels and military personnel were among the witnesses who identified Hitler's partially exposed body. Martin Bormann used papers to start the fire after the first attempt to light the bodies did not work. Several employees saluted from the doorway. The spent cartridge and the blood-soaked rug were taken out and burned outside at 4:15 p.m. The afternoon was filled with Red Army shelling. The remains were buried in a shallow crater after being burned in the open, but by 6:30 p.m., the heavy gasoline used had reduced the corpses to ashes. Shelling persisted until May 2nd. Also, 50 years ago today, on April 30th, 1975, Saigon, the capital of South Vietnam, has fallen to North Vietnam. This pivotal moment in the 1975 Spring Offensive resulted in the evacuation of thousands of South Vietnamese civilians and U.S. personnel, as well as the fall of the South Vietnamese government. The Vietnam War came to an end at the time. Following the incident, the country entered a period of transition under North Vietnamese rule, which ended on July 2nd, 1976, when it was formally reunited as the Socialist Republic of Vietnam under communist governance. On April 29th, 1975, the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, forces led by General Nguyen Van Ton, were heavily bombarded by artillery as the People's Army of Vietnam and the Viet Cong, led by General Van Thien Dung, launched their final assault on Saigon. The following day's afternoon saw the PAVN-VC take control of the city's key locations and fly their flags over the South Vietnamese presidential palace. Operation Frequent Wind, which involved the evacuation of nearly all American military and civilian personnel in Saigon, as well as tens of thousands of South Vietnamese civilians who had been connected to the Republic of Vietnam, came before the city was taken. Some Americans declined to evacuate. More than 2 years before Saigon's collapse, American ground combat units had departed South Vietnam and were unable to help with the evacuation or Saigon's defense. It turned out to be the biggest helicopter evacuation ever. The end of the war and the implementation of new regulations by the communist government, along with the refugee flight, caused the city's population to decline until 1979, at which point it began to grow once more. In remembrance of Ho Chi Minh, the late chairman of the Workers' Party of Vietnam and the founder of the Democratic Republic of Vietnam, or North Vietnam by short, the National Assembly of the Unified Vietnam was renamed Saigon on July 2nd, 1976. No, I think Ho Chi Minh City. Or I could be wrong. You do the research. Every year on April 30th, the Vietnamese celebrate that day as a national holiday called Reunification Day. It's hard to believe those history events go by so fast. That's all I have for you all today. If you like what you hear, leave a comment down below and subscribe. This is Stephen Luke, and I'll see you next time for another history update.